Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that could totally change how AI thinks. We're moving beyond a single predictable AI to a whole world of diverse, creative thinkers, all coming from one model. So let's just jump right in. You got to ask yourself, are these super powerful AIs we use every day actually stuck? I mean, they seem limitless, but they have this surprising weakness. They can get into a real creative rut, and researchers have just figured out a brilliant way to snap them out of it. But, to really get why this is such a big deal, we got to look at the problem it's trying to solve. Turns out, in our quest to make AI safe and helpful, we might have accidentally made them, well, a little boring. We all have this idea of AI as this bottomless well of creativity, right? We expect completely new, unique ideas every time. But the reality is often what researchers are calling structural homogenization. It's basically a fancy way of saying we get digital groupthink. The AI just keeps falling back on the same old ways of thinking. And yeah, this quote from the paper just hits the nail on the head. The very things we do to make AI better, like training it on human feedback, actually pushes it toward having just one right way to think. And that makes it way less adventurous, less likely to stumble upon a really out there brilliant solution.
All right, so the obvious question is, why not just crank up the randomness dial? It seems like an easy fix, but as we're about to see, it doesn't really get to the heart of the problem.
So the go-to method for this is something called temperature sampling. You can pretty much think of it as telling the AI, hey, when you're picking the next word, maybe don't always pick the most obvious one. Roll the dice a little, choose something less common. It's supposed to spice things up. But here's the catch. This is really just a surface-level fix. It's kind of like shaking a can of soda that's already gone flat. You're not changing what's inside, you're just making it fizz randomly. It doesn't change the AI's basic way of thinking. And so what you end up with isn't some brilliant new idea, it's just noise, a jumble of words that don't quite make sense. You're not getting a new perspective, you're just getting a confused version of the old one. Okay, so if just shaking things up randomly doesn't work, then what's the answer? Well, that's where things get really interesting. This brings us to a new solution that tackles this exact challenge. How do you get both diversity and coherence? The big idea here behind this new method they call B-Trans is super intuitive when you think about it. Instead of trying to make one mind think differently, what if you could just generate a bunch of different minds to begin with? And that's the magic of B-Trans. It takes just one standard AI model, and with this really clever trick, it can basically spin up a whole crowd of different AI personas, each with its own slightly different take, all from the same original programming. Okay, so how in the world does it pull this off without having to train like 100 different models, which would be incredibly expensive? This is the really cool part.
All right, so what B-Trans does is just so elegant. It finds these little internal knobs inside the AI's brain. They're called normalization layers. Then it gives one of those knobs a tiny little random push, a little bias. And here's the kicker. It locks that push in place for the entire time the AI is thinking about its response.
And what that does is it creates something the researchers call temporal consistency. Basically, it means each AI persona stays on track. It's not just random gibberish at every step. Instead, you get one consistent, unique thinker generating the entire response, making sure it all makes sense from beginning to end. That's how you get real diversity, not just chaos. All right, so that's the theory. It sounds awesome, right? But does it actually work when you put it to the test? Well, the researchers ran it through a whole bunch of really tough challenges to see what would happen. And wow, this chart just says it all. You can see right here, those green and blue dots, that's B-Trans. It's exploring everywhere, all over the map of ideas. Now look at the other colors, the standard AIs. They're all just huddled together in these tight little clumps. They're stuck in their own little bubbles. And it's not just about being different for the sake of being different. This chart shows that this variety is actually useful. The more minds from B-Trans you ask for help, the better your chances are of actually finding the right answer to a hard problem. It's not just thinking outside the box, it's finding more correct solutions. And yeah, the raw numbers tell the same story. You look at these math problems, which are notoriously tricky for AIs, and across the board, B-Trans gives these models a real, measurable boost in their problem-solving skills. The diversity directly leads to better results. So let's zoom out. What does this all mean for the future of AI? Because this is way bigger than just a neat little trick.
what we're seeing here is a shift, a huge one. We're moving away from trying to build one single, perfect, all-knowing AI brain. Instead, B-Trans suggests we can have one model that becomes a generator for a whole population of thinkers, each with its own unique viewpoint, ready to go at a moment's notice. And that leaves us with this really mind-bending question, doesn't it? Are we really building a single AI anymore? Or are we building a whole population in a box? The future of AI might not be about creating a smarter mind, but about harnessing the wisdom of a crowd that you can summon in an instant. Just think about the possibilities there.